Gonna call the, hold on, I gotta say, got it. Calling the policy committee meeting to order. Let's see here. What else am I doing? I'll read it, but we don't really need, no, cell phones should be silenced. Our meetings may require invoking informal board meetings. Rules such for visitor speaking and participation will be limited to 3 minutes during the agenda item and visitor participation. Okay, roll call.
I'm here.
Binwin
Yep.
and Tamika Vukovic is here. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, we are rolling. We are on to discussion items, equity committee update. So we have, So I'm going to start out, but this has been a long process and hopefully we can get to getting the work done. I have invited Emilio de Torre. He has sent in with his team a proposal for the equity committee. And I just want, Ben, did you see that?
I looked at it, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you got it. And I just want him to kind of talk about it a little bit, give us, and then we can ask him questions and give him some feedback on where we are connected in here and what we are trying to do and accomplish. So I am going to turn it over to the man I just saw exactly 1/2 hour ago, Emilio de Torre.
Thank you, Tamika. And hello to everybody. Some of you are new to me, and I'm looking forward to meeting with you all. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Dr. Amber Tucker and Dr. Robert Smith and Molly Collins, two of whom have children that are in the Glendale school district. And I think the little paper speaks for itself. I'm essentially just looking forward to working with the members of the equity committee to establish and with the public some basic guidelines, maybe some trainings on equity, diversity, and inclusion to establish a baseline of definitions and understanding so that we can work with the equity committee to share different ideas and concepts of what might be included in the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And then that committee, to my understanding, would then make some recommendations to the policy committee, who may then make recommendations to the school board. If you want us on our team to work with the policy committee and the school board going forward, past the process of working with the public and the equity committee, I'm happy to take a look at what that is also. But the four of us all have extensive experience working around the country with these topics, with facilitating an open democratic process to kind of get people to understand what all of these terms mean, what this means for public education, for family members, et cetera. I'm open to any questions. I don't remember if I mentioned it there. I was also a public school teacher in Brooklyn and in Queens, and I was director of education services for 15,000 young people, 11 boys and girls clubs in
excuse me, Danielle, can you
Brooklyn, Bronx, and Manhattan.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Emilio.
That's it essentially. I think that process and hopefully my reiteration of what I'm envisioning the process to be is clear.
Ms. Weiss, I keep wanting to call you doctor. I am pushing you into a doctor form, I swear. Ms. Weiss, I know you had some concerns, but I wanted you to just ask him the questions. Also, so Ben and I can hear what your concerns and questions are, so we can kind of run through what it is, and also see if there's any public comment in regards to this. We can open that up now for you. We can start with you.
Thanks, Tamika. Thanks for coming. I appreciate the time. So I guess Tamika and I had a conversation and it sounded pretty in line with what we had discussed before. I think some of the things in the proposal, maybe the language used just threw me a little bit. I would say one of the things that caught me off guard the most was, it was something around, I'm looking at it right now, setting the develop an equity plan or direction for the district. So that was a bit concerning for me because we're obviously going to be starting some strategic planning work. And that's going to be a huge part of it. Like I actually envision our strategic plan, everything almost being under the umbrella of equity. So for me, that felt a little bit different than what you're explaining now, which is just more around like, let's talk about some common definitions. Let's make sure we all understand what equity is. Let's look at our policies. And also doing some policy work perhaps with WASB. So I could see that being like a partnership. And so after I talked to Tamika this week, it sort of felt like maybe it was just some of the language. And then the other piece was some of the goals later about training with possibly doing workshops with teachers in the summer. That's tricky because we have very limited time, with staff in the summer for professional development. So just making sure that we weren't like locked into any, do you know what I mean? Anything. Like
Absolutely. And those are all good catches. I think I may have, in an effort to be terse and kind of, put everything on 3/4 of a page, I may have chose unusually strong language. And it's very open. I mean, we're working with the equity committee to broadly define what these things are. We don't have a preconceived notion of what there is to be included other than helping to educate on these topics and kind of create a baseline of what these things are so that people feel comfortable talking, and maybe we can help people find the words to express what it is that they want to see so that they can work with the equity committee. None of us are there to tell anybody what to do. Dr. Tucker, Dr. Smith, Molly and I all have years of experience of helping to facilitate these organic conversations across the whole state. I've been everywhere from, communities, small rural communities around Superior to all throughout MPS and Racine Unified School District. So it's really up to you to do these things. We're just offering guidestones, education, contemporary language, and each of us have about 20+ years working in this specific area to draw upon. And summertime, I get it. I'm married to a teacher. She doesn't want to work over the summer. I just wanted I put that in there just to let you know. I don't know what this timeline looks like for you. I know that you'd like to begin the process, which is difficult, as soon as possible. But it's just really to let you know that if it happens to go over the summertime, we can be available over the summertime.
do you see, because I know that we had talked about one of the main starting points was to really get together with the committee, define what their goals are for the work and really outline the work. Do you see that as something that you guys would be facilitating? Because I think that was where we're like, give us some focus, help us figure out our goals, help us map out the plan so that we know how it's going to roll out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think strategically with that, especially, you're going to find Dr. Tucker and Molly extremely skillful in that and what that process looks like.
Great. Those are really the only two things, Tamika, and we kind of talked about it last week. Yeah.
You
Ben,
can almost consider us Swiss Army knives. If you need the screwdriver, if you need the small blade, if you need that weird hooky thing that nobody knows what it is, we got it.
Being new right now, I completely understand the idea of having some goals, but not knowing exactly how you're going to map that out yet. Yeah.
and that is the key to this, because I think the idea of, at least I had the idea, and I don't want to speak for Danielle, but this section of it, we really wanted it to be parents, teacher to the point, because I know the administration and you will make the recommendations to the board, but this is about our community. This is about our kids. This is bigger than one superintendent or a couple of administrators. And I always thought that if we can become one as a community in this work, it's easier for you to implement what you need to implement, further down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, do you have any questions?
Not right now, because this is kind of seems kind of nebulous right now. So,
Why you were using big words? You know, we don't know what those words mean.
well, no, just,
Right.
once there's something like to talk about, then yeah, no, there will be questions. But right now it seems like this is sort of just at the beginning. So
Right.
there's a, oh yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
I
Go ahead.
actually did a diversity, equity, and bias training at the Glendale Middle School for the entire middle school, the students as well as invited teachers and parents. I'm just remembering this, like 5 or 6 years ago. So
You did it right, almost around when I got on the board. So Danielle, do you have any questions
Well,
for anybody from the community?
I guess
Rob,
I do actually have one. So this is like this is over the year. Like when is this starting?
I personally want to start having that one conversation to bring the committee together, or people who want to be part of this committee. I want to have it this month, if not early December. Depends on, how we can get it close together and work on schedules and times and stuff. Because in my head, I want to start those equity training in January. Like, I really want to make sure that we start the equity training in January, and we can go through some processes of that is in my head of what this looks like. I don't know if that works, because we still have to, figure some stuff out. But I believe the first meeting of the policy committee should be, this month or early December. Then we can, take a little break for the holidays, the Christmas holiday and New Year's, and then start to work fresh in January with those equity trainings and seeing what that looks like, whether it's, but that's for the committee to decide if it's going to be virtual, is it going to be in person? It's all that has to be laid out. So that's how I vision it. I don't know if anybody else has another way of envisioning this right now.
And this is your after school idea? You were saying like nights during the week?
Yeah, we want people to come after school. This is volunteering, but it's after school is closed and when parents are mostly home.
Yeah, no, I was just making sure that was still the idea. Because I remember you saying this like 2 months ago or something.
Yeah, we want you to be there, Ben. We know you teach. Ben's a teacher too. There's too many teachers on this call
And
right
swim
now.
coach.
And Ben, I was envisioning, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Tamika, that we would then bring this proposal to the full board this month, like in a week or whatever our next board meeting is.
Right, but yeah, but we need to get to where we need to go first.
Mhm.
So do we need to, okay, yeah, so when we bring it to the board though, do we need to like have a list of dates and times and?
No,
No,
we
I
just
just
have to
think,
have the proposal. It doesn't
yeah,
even
we
have to be
just,
detailed.
Danielle?
Yeah, hey, sorry, I'm catching up processing. Hi, Emilio, miss you. It's been a while.
I miss you too, my friend. It's good to hear you guys' voices.
Yeah, wait here. There we go. Hi. Emilio and I used to serve on the True School board together, so we go back. No, I guess I feel like I would want to see this broken down. Like, I'd want to see the phases. I feel like the first phase sounds like concrete and everyone's on board with coming in, talking to the equity committee, getting everyone on the same page, same footing, trainings, whatever that means, having that first sort of meeting and the goal setting. I feel like once that committee set some goals, wouldn't it then be easier to kind of map out the phases upon which we might meet those goals, right? Like I envision this committee coming with a tangible delivery to the board of recommendations around equity, either an equity policy, policies, principles, something to that effect, like the work that most equity committees do in districts. So I guess I'm just looking at like the time. I'm wondering if it would get more specific sort of after you have that initial meeting.
Well,
I'm talking
think
out
you're-
loud, just thinking out loud.
I know, and I'm thinking we have to bring in the proposal, say this is what, this is the team we're gonna have. Then bring the committee together to sign, what do we want, what does it look like? I don't see the difference from what you said to what we
And what the
said earlier.
proposal's doing. Yeah,
Right.
no, maybe not. Yeah, no, I guess not.
Because we can't do
Yeah.
anything or have any meetings until after the board actually says it's okay with this proposal. Then we
Yeah.
can start being more specific on
I
what we're
guess
doing.
for me, so if we're presenting this to the board, or you're presenting this to the board and you're saying it's this much money depending on the scope and length of project, as a board member, how would I approve something where I don't know the scope and the length of the project? So what can we do to define that more? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Well,
guess
what
it's hard to see cost
what I would
correlate
ask-
to when there's no. Yeah.
What I would ask Emilio to do is we can tentatively okay this proposal, and then once the equity committee meets, they can do a more defined on how much it is, and then go back to the board with the cost of it. But if we don't know what we're doing, but we can't ask them to do work when they don't know what we want them to do yet. So
right, that's where I'm getting stuck. Like, we need to do a little bit of the defining work, which would be great for them to facilitate, and then that work, Emilio, correct me if I'm wrong, that work would help you guys better define what help we need or assistance we need from you, and would better help you define the scope and length of the project, right?
Yes, I had imagined it, and I hear everything you're both saying. I mean, it is, I'm going to use Ben's adjective, it is nebulous as you try to determine what the best process is for the public, as well as all the other shareholders in the school district. And when our team was talking it over, we realized this might mean 2 to 3 public forums, maybe after school works for some parents, but you need a Saturday to also have other folks come in for the same training. We get that that's kind of fluid. And then we'd be working with the equity committee to see, after we do the baseline training, where we imagined it to be a few different trainings where there was a kind of general and people understood what this meant with real life examples of what happens in Wisconsin, in the Midwest. And then have some sort of, and I don't know how this looks because the folks in your school district and the families there better. Is it a survey? Is it a Zoom forum? Is it a live forum? Is it a hybrid where families and students can anonymously, if need be, submit their concerns or the types of things they'd like to see in this? And then we would work with the committee to kind of synthesize that and boil that down, and then sort that out in chunks, and then share that with the committee so that they could work to create whatever policies you need.
I like that.
We're not there to create the policies, we're just there to kind of create the process to synthesize all of these ingredients from the community into bite-sized chunks that are in line. Like Rob, Dr. Smith, who's also on the board back in the day, is excellent at aligning these things with DPI codes. So like, and I've done that consistently over the years too, here in Pennsylvania and New York. So to make sure that the things you're looking at and listing can, if you want, also align with what the state standards are.
So this, just a question that popped up in my head is, in thinking about the online trainings, like, you're going to have a variety of people with coming into it, right? Some expert, not expert, maybe some expert, maybe some beginners. Do you, like, how do you work to avoid the pitfalls of, like, say you have a lot of people of color or just experts, allies, whatever, who have done the work, who know, like, how are we gonna, sometimes when I do this work, it's redundant, right? It's like, because you're starting at ground zero for some people, and we want those people on board, and we want to do that. I guess I'm just wondering how you guys would work to, like, if you think about that when you're coming into it, sort of how do you address everyone's,
Absolutely. So all 4 of us have done this type of work in these trainings consistently for upwards of a decade right here in Wisconsin. So, that's what the joy and the messiness of the democracy is. You have folks that are seasoned professionals and you have folks, everybody's a professional in their own life. Everybody sees what's happening to their child or their community. They may not have the words for it. They may not have, the current phrasing for it, but it's easy enough for us to find a common ground and to incorporate everyone that's there into the solution. None of us, would ever intentionally make somebody feel like they were being bored or are an unwelcome part of the process because they're too educated.
I know you wouldn't.
Or
I
they don't
know.
have the spaces. And you've
Yeah.
seen me. I mean, I'm all about communicating.
Yeah, I know. All right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks,
I'm
guys.
even wearing a Cowboy Bebop shirt under this really cool sweater.
So some of these questions, I know Danielle is one of her strong suits is making sure that the details are there. But some of these questions will not be answered until we actually get the committee together and we ask those questions. So I would entertain a motion. And wait, before I do that,
I have
would you, hold on, would you, Dr. Ms. Weiss, would you want some of that language changed before we present it to we don't have to have another meeting, just the language changed to show what he said here compared to, so we don't have any misconceptions on what it is. Would that be one of the suggestions you will make?
Yeah, I think just so that it's really clear when we bring it to the full board, like what the
Okay.
actual beginning is. And I'm happy to help with that, Emilio. I don't want to dump it on your plate. I'm happy to connect with you if we want to kind of email back and forth or Tamika or whatever. I really think it's just a couple sentences. I don't think it's anything major.
I'm totally open to that. If you want to, even if you'd like to strike and change the language into one that's more suitable to how you envision the process, I'm happy to look at it, share it with the rest of the team, sign off
And then I
on
can
it.
run it by you, Tamika, first too, of course.
Okay,
So,
that takes care of that part. Now, Ben, did you have another comment?
oh, it was just something that Danielle brought up. So yeah, she was saying okay, so because I saw the budget thing too, but because that's executive content, are we allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, you can talk about it because
Okay,
it's
so-
we have $15,000 budgeted into the budget for this.
Yeah. So, okay, and what does that go to? Stipends or?
It's just like any other consultant that we would hire to do some of the work, or if we have to buy things for, it's just overall for this committee to do the work that we need to do.
Right. So, and with what Danielle was saying, does that mean that when we approve this, we should approve this with the minimum budget and then bring it back?
Not, from what I understand, from what in my brain, we are not proving it with the budget yet until we actually know what it looks like. Now, we may have to pay them some for their time. If we decide this is not where we want to go, we don't need them, we're going to have to pay some portions of their time for helping us get to that point. But I think the bigger program will come back to the board after they know what we want to see. If we want to see 16 public comments, that would be one price. If we only want to have 3, that would be another price, but we have to figure out what that is. I think we're getting a little bit in the weeds in the sense of we don't know what our committee wants to see in this yet. And it's different because this is a brand new thing. This is something that we're starting new. So we have to start with our goals, our what do we want to see in it? And we can't do that until the committee meets, and we can't meet until the board at least sees that this is this is who we're going to work with, and we'll figure out, we will approve budget after we figure out what we.
So we're approving this without a budget, and then they'll come back with a budget.
Well, we have a budget. We're approving it without saying that we're going to pay this certain amount of money.
Okay.
Then we will come back, they'll come back with an invoice and saying, this is how much it's gonna cost. Right now, they're estimating this is gonna cost between $12,000 and $15,000, which is in the budget. I think
Okay.
that was what the number was, wasn't it?
Mhm.
It might be 10, it might be 5, hell, who knows what it might
But
be.
this is the equity committee's budget.
Yes.
Not, okay.
So Ben, what my understanding is we'd bring it to the full board to approve working with this group.
Yeah,
And that's kind of like the first step.
Right.
okay.
All right. Any other questions? So I would entertain a motion to submit this proposal to the full board with revisions that will be later to be announced, but it will be posted with the
Mhm.
agenda.
Yeah, so moved.
I second it. All in favor?
All right,
Okay, let's see here. There was another, all right. So Amelia, you can hang out and talk about the public comment policy, or you can be gone and go see your husband and I mean, your wife and children. It's up to you.
I'm gonna go see my husband and my wife and my children. No.
Well, you're not supposed to tell me about the husband. I slipped on
I'm
that
teasing,
one.
friends. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting all of you,
You
and thank you
too.
for considering us. And I'm open to any questions if you decide that you have questions at a later date. All right, lead a transparent life. Take care.
thank you.
Thank you. Second agenda, let's see, where am I at now? 2B, public participation policy. Let me start with my 2 cents. This policy is getting to be like extreme, and this is my opinion, but it's beginning to be extremely nitpicky. This is not what the policy is supposed to be. It's supposed to give us guidelines on what we need to do. If you read, I don't know if Danielle gave it to us or was it part of it, but some of the structures of what WASB says, we don't even have to have a public pilot or public hearing. What I want this board to focus on and get people to understand is we have committee meetings. Committee meetings are where we're supposed to hash out things, because that's where we're taking policy and sending it to the board. So if someone has a concern, we've already sent a policy that we thought was okay to the board, and now we have to send it back. We need to hash these out in committee meetings. That's why I think our communication on what our committee meetings are needs to be more robust. We need to say, hey, most of our policies come through a committee. No matter what it is, it comes through committee. Those are like, right now we're talking about this. We should be hashing out the full details of this with public comments and robust conversation here in your committee. Once we hear things and we get it all together, then we send it to the board. Now, I trust that the people that are on the finance committee is going to do the work when it comes to finance. And then if I want to be part of that, I can, like Danielle's not technically part of the policy committee, but she's sitting here listening because she wants, to give a voice or wants to be heard. So I want this to be like simple and sweet, but giving people a access. So I think the policy that we have right now, which one are we?
Yeah, okay, so in red is what's being added?
Yeah, and red was things that I added after the last board
Uh-huh.
meeting recommendations.
What's blue?
Hold on, let me look. Blue, I think I just moved something. So blue, I didn't change anything, Ben. I just had that part at the bottom and I moved it to the middle.
Aha,
Because the recommendation that I got was that it was a little bit in your face, listing all of those things like at the end. So I just moved them to the middle.
okay.
So with this policy, let's just go through it. There's a couple of things that'll change. We'll have 2 public hearing or public comment section. The first one will come somewhere on the agenda, like before we start into like discussion items. It'll come before there. That is when any person can speak on an agenda item, there will be no discussion here. And the reason we are not discussing it is because it's an agenda item. And as we go through our agenda, people will say, well, I have a question about this, this, and this. Now we can do some follow-up, you know, if this is, and that's what I'm a little concerned with, but the follow-up of back and forth, I don't want a back and forth type thing going on, because again, we should be discussing these in committee, and that is where the back and forth goes. They can discuss something if they have a concern or if they don't know something. So say if Ms. Weiss was going to talk about something with special ed, they have a question about it, she can incorporate that into her presentation or answer that question without, you know, and it can still flow.
Mhm.
The second one, and then we go through our agenda, and the second one is at the end, where if something came up in this meeting that we probably, it's not on the agenda, but we may need to talk about, that's when you can say, can you put this on the agenda for the next school board meeting? Or I want to talk about why there's 3 pieces of grass on the lawn, and I thought it was all brown and it should be green. That's not on the agenda, but they want to talk about it. We can put it in a committee or put it on the agenda item. So we still are being proactive on what people want to see on our agendas. It will keep our meetings flowing, I believe. But we're also giving them a space to speak.
And
But,
so this,
but again, I am really wanting us to, in open session, really iterate that committee meetings are for discussion and back and forth.
so they would, yeah, so if my understanding is that they, like you said, they talk about agenda items before any agenda item is talked about, and then they cannot participate while the board is talking to the administrators about agenda items.
Correct.
And then can only participate again at the very end about non-agenda items.
Correct.
Okay.
Because everything that we are talking about has come through committee.
I'm actually okay with that.
Yeah.
I know, I know not everyone is, but
Danielle, I know you had some things that you wanted to say about this, but do you have concerns with, oh, baby, do you have concerns with what I have proposed right now as of setting? And then I have some extra things I want to add to wording.
I mean, the biggest concern that comes to me is, what about something that doesn't go through committee? There are sometimes items that don't go through committees that end up at board meetings. So you're not going to allow people to engage with that the way they would with something that went through a committee, possibly.
Or
I understand if you guys are coming from these places where you don't want board meetings to be about engaging with the community, they're about the board doing its business. I understand that, but this policy is going to chill participation the way that it's set right now. People are not going to talk about agenda items before they've heard about them.
I'm telling you, Danielle, I don't think that it does work, because here's the thing. If there is an agenda item, if there is something that we did not put through committee,
Yeah.
the beauty of this policy is that we can add it to agenda. Anybody who wants to speak about this can be
Yes.
added.
That's
So-
what I'm all about. Give us discretion. I want, if this is the policy that people are going to get behind, there needs to be discretion to have those, to change and to have public forums on certain topics where we think where it would be relevant or might make sense. But my perspective on these changes is that it, like you said, this policy now gets more restrictive, more nitpicky. It says more about what we can't do than what we can. This policy currently allows for no engagement from the board around an agenda item. I assume because it's happening before.
No, that is not.
That's what the policy says.
No, the policy says at the time of public comment, there is no engagement.
yeah.
So if a citizen asks a question, the board cannot answer that question.
We
Or
will
staff
answer the
cannot answer
question
that
when
question.
we will answer the question when it gets to the agenda item.
I mean, and again, that doesn't necessarily make logical sense. Like you're not, but I understand where you're coming from. And sorry, my phone keeps slipping. I've definitely you and Ben and Allison all know how I feel about this policy. And when it comes to the board, I can reiterate those points again. I'm not gonna, I don't need to belabor it. I'm not sure
But
that
Danielle,
anything is
there's
wrong
one
with our current.
There's
Yeah, go
one
ahead.
key thing you are completely missing in this whole thing.
Enlighten us.
If it doesn't work, we can change it.
That's true.
I agree, but I think we're about to go into this transition, right? Sorry, one more thing. We're about to meet in person while also meeting online, and we're going to drastically change our public participation policy at the same time. To me, I'm not sure it's broken and that it needs to be changed right now. And perhaps I'd suggest waiting to see how those meetings go and then look again to change it if these meetings become cumbersome or not efficient. But I mean,
Right now, they
I don't know.
can't talk on a non-agenda item or agenda item at all. With
Yes,
the
they can.
policy
Under our current, yes, they can. Our current policy specifically says that
non-agenda
an
item.
agenda, yes, an agenda item will be presented. The public will then have an opportunity to discuss before the board deliberates. Like, it's so specific. I'm not even saying our policy should be that specific. I'm saying we should allow ourselves discretion. We should say we may allow for public periods, one or more, depending, or we can gather input like in various ways. But I agree with you that it shouldn't be so prescriptive, but right now it's very prescriptive. And it even says like the board cannot engage on these things, which to me, I'm not a fan of. That's all. But
and I
it's okay.
understand that,
we can agree to disagree.
and I understand that, and I guess I'm just gonna say this, that most of the boards that I have looked at, because I actually went into some council board other than Glendale and I've gone through, like I went to Nicolet's, I went to Shorewood, I went to what is this, Hales Corner, something or other, when they had virtual, and some other ones that I knew nothing about and saw how they ran.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, there are some school boards that have like 3 visitor participations, like Shorewood. I think they have 2 or 3, but their meetings last from 6 to 10. And there are other on this board previously to, I've been on the board almost 6 years. There was robust conversation when people wanted to speak because they signed in. If we heard that, that was fine. But I think I wouldn't have never touched it except for the fact that we needed to cut people off because they were talking. And I think one of the board meetings, someone mentioned, we need to figure this out.
Well, we weren't following our policy. We started changing it and we weren't actually following the current policy, which I think prompted a review of what the policy is. I just don't think currently, even online, our board meetings are not running long because we have so many people wanting to engage on agenda items. I think it's going to cut off. I don't know how efficient that changing this policy or like how much time this is going to shave off of our meeting. And as I told Allison this morning, I get that there should be a different purpose for our meetings, which should be just having our meetings in public as opposed to a public meeting, and that people subscribe to that. And I think that could work for our district as we continue to improve our communication, like as we have various avenues for folks to get information. I love your idea about robust committee meetings. I think that's great. I want to see that happen. And so I'm just not sure, like we can do that. And I'm not sure that cutting off participation right now. I don't need to speak anymore. You guys, I've said how I feel. I understand where everyone's coming from. I just prefer to give the community more ways to engage. I think that right now this is a way we've seen people get involved, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, we see certain people get involved.
And Danielle,
we also take what those certain people say as gold, because they are the ones with the opportunity to actually come. I feel like because the committee meetings are so different times, different scales, people can adjust to where they want to be at and what's important to them. I guess it just, I feel like we are not cutting people off. We're just streamlining it, making sure that they actually go to committee meetings, because that is where the policy is coming out of.
Yeah.
We're going to make a recommendation out of this committee for something.
I know Allison wants to talk.
Now this conversation we're having back and forth, that's fine. I like it.
Yeah.
I want to have
Yeah.
that, but it shouldn't be in the board meeting. Do
Right.
you that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
So when we bring this up, we have had a conversation. Ben and I will make recommendations. There should be some slight conversation with other board members that are not part of this committee, you know, just to clarify some stuff, or if they have questions, because they may not have been here, like Molly's not here, Andy's not here. So they may have qualify or answer questions, but I see Rob Cronwell's hand is
but
up.
Tamika, just one to your point,
Go ahead.
though, timing of agendas then is a huge deal, because the
I'm
amount
sorry,
of
can
time
you
a board
repeat that? I didn't hear you.
timing of getting agendas then would be a bigger deal, because in order for a person who's not on a committee to learn information about what happened or see if they have questions, if the board meeting is not intended for that, we need more time to process or know what we don't know. And so with the public, I would say.
That is true. We know what these committee meetings should be well in advance. I mean, because it's not something that just automatically pops up. We usually know what our committees are doing. Like we knew, even though like we couldn't have our meeting last week, we knew exactly what was going to be on this agenda. If something is added a couple of days before, then we revise it, you know, within the statute of the 24 hours or whatever it is. But overall, we know what our committee meetings are going to be about. So they should be up there pretty quick. And then we also talked about having, and I don't know if I can really talk about this in the meeting because we didn't notice it, but maybe we just have to have a conversation about when we're putting up our agendas at another time, or just circle back with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's just circle back with that. Cause I know we had a conversation with Allison and she preferred Monday because at least she had the weekend to get stuff together. She would try to get them out on Friday. Is that what we were trying to do? And then you said no, wait, Monday.
Yeah, the agenda was easier to get out, but it was getting like all the supporting documents together was Monday. Yeah. That's what we originally talked about.
Sorry, we keep cutting you off, Allison, and Rob, Tamika saw your hand.
I did.
I was just gonna say that, so one of the points you made was, what if it's something on the agenda that didn't come through committee? And I would push on that and say, if it wasn't important enough to come through committee or to be discussed in committee, then it's just something that's on the agenda for board approval. And it's not like a big enough issue where we're gonna have like dialogue all around it. Do you know what I'm saying? That's gonna be something that administration just worked on, made some decisions and is bringing to the board for conversation, but not necessarily, do you know what I'm saying? Because I think if it's a bigger issue where we are going to have more dialogue, it's going to go through committee. Do you know what I mean?
So then,
smaller stuff that doesn't go
that makes sense. So your expectation would be, well, sorry, if people had questions about it, they wouldn't be asking them during the board meeting. They'd be following up with you or whoever did the thing offline. And getting that information for themselves.
I think that following up with us offline is always an option, especially like you said, if it's something on the agenda and then they have additional questions. Do you know what I mean? And the last part is just non-agenda items. They can always follow up on stuff. And then the other thing I was going to say is what Tamika kind of talked to. So if we're in a board meeting and we're discussing something and two people from the community raise issues, we're not going to make decisions for the entire district based on what two people say anyways. So that's kind of the efficiency piece. Like, how do we gather feedback from the whole community or parents on issues where we need that feedback? Do you know what I'm saying? Versus like one person comes and says, I disagree with this, or I don't understand that. We're not going to totally change course. Do you know what I'm saying? Like on a decision we're making as a board and a district based on like one. Do you know what I mean? I think
I
questions.
understand that, but
different than-
people raise questions that then make you think and then can create your own questions or perspectives, which can be helpful. And you and I talked about this
Right,
coming
and that
from a
could
time of
be
COVID.
in a
There
comment.
were a lot of things we didn't think
Mhm.
of. It was a good time to invite feedback that way. So if we are in fact seeking feedback from the community in various forms on topics that matter, then this makes sense to me. But we're not there yet. That's my point. We're not
But
doing that yet.
I think if
actively.
somebody gives a bunch of feedback, so they come to the comments, they make statements, just because we're not dialoguing doesn't mean we're not going to take that feedback. Like that we're not
And
going to
also-
hear it and reflect. And do you know
And
what I'm
there's
saying?
there's one key element to this. We're elected freaking officials. They can, if they have a question, we are there for them.
Right.
I know people ask me questions offline and said,
Mhm.
can you ask this question for me? I might be able to get their answer just by writing an email to Allison. That is part of our job, but people have to take some responsibility. We can give an example of Rob Cronwell. Let's just talk about, he knows what every agenda item is. He reads these things. He takes the time to do it. If he is interested in something, he will come to it, and you can speak now, but if he's not, then he's like, all right, I'm okay with it. He will have an opinion. What is your opinion, Rob Cronwell? Sorry for making you wait so long, by the way.
That's okay. So I would say that as somebody who comments on at these meetings often and who tries to follow whatever rules and policies the board has in place, I have found that it's most productive to be able to comment on an item after it's been briefed to the board, because a lot of times I may have a question or a concern that gets addressed during that briefing statement that you usually get from the administrator or whatever, and then not have a question or not have to ask anything or follow up. You're asking people to anticipate what the situation is in advance in order to give a comment, and the information in the agendas isn't necessarily complete. In fact, for tonight, this proposed change, I don't think that document was up with the rest of the stuff immediately. It got added later. I had no idea you were actually approving the actual policy tonight.
No,
Well,
we're not approving the
we're not.
policy. It's we may send it to the board. We still have to decide. But to your point, Rob, this is a policy committee, so this is where you talk about stuff. Most of the questions you're gonna have is in the policy meeting or the committee meeting. If you have gone to the committee meeting and then you have some other question, because this is where the committee meeting is where we are discussing it. And then we're gonna go into the board.
Except I would point out that at the last committee meeting, you ran short on time, didn't flesh out the policy, and then submitted it to the board.
No, we did not.
Question.
I'll run the video back and answer that question again sometime. But because I was at that meeting, I watched the video on that meeting, and you ran short on time, and it didn't really
then
get
we
totally
tabled
fleshed out
it.
until it went to the
But
board.
we
The
brought
board
it
meeting,
to
we
them and
tabled
we
it.
tabled it because we knew we were gonna have to table it.
Right. But to get back to my point, so I find that in order to, like I said, communicate most effectively to whatever organization it is, I prefer the method that the city council uses and what you guys have been using up to this point, as opposed to what Nicolay uses, where you either talk before or after, and you know, it doesn't do a lot of good to talk after. So you kind of have to guess what's the specifics are in the situation, because it's really just a broad outline a lot of the times in the agenda. You don't know the specifics. You don't get an idea of what they're actually going to ask and what some of the details are until after the administration gives its presentation.
But if you came to the committee meeting, you would know everything that they're
Well,
going to be done.
Is this policy
Secondly,
just
I
gonna
did
apply to the-
bring, hold
Is
on.
it just gonna
Secondly,
apply to the board meetings, or is this gonna apply also to committee meetings? I mean,
no, this only applies to board meetings.
okay. One other thing, I have found that since you guys switched to the committee, I don't know what you call it, organizational structure, some things end up in some weird committees that you wouldn't naturally expect them to be in. So you may not be watching them and notice them come through the committee until it shows up on the board meetings agenda. Just as a, you guys don't actually have a formal structure of what goes where. It was
Do you
never really
feel-
fleshed out.
Can I ask, do you feel like that's happened since July?
I don't know if it's happened since July. To be honest, my kids are out of your district and I don't pay that much attention anymore.
I was only asking because I've noticed that, and then we've had conversations around like what fits where. So I
But
hear
there
what
was
you're
something
saying.
that showed up in I don't think it was like a staffing issue in the policy committee. I don't, or vice
Yeah,
versa.
I hear what
It
you're
was
saying.
weird, and I was like, I don't know what that's doing in this committee, but okay.
Mhm.
I think it got fixed
Yep,
a
I
little
hear what you're
bit.
saying.
We did have some things that were in both committees, two committees, one committee. So I think that since July, it has been fixed.
We're
To
working.
Rob's point,
Oh,
can I
and
ask a
to
question?
one other
Oh.
question to Rob, your point, I did try to bring the committee, I did try to bring the one that the council uses where if you wanted to talk on an agenda item, you know how we let you speak after we get the presentation, but you had to call the alderman and say, I want to talk about this thing. It didn't go, so that, thank you for that, but it wasn't one of the things that fit us. I mean, this committee decided it wasn't one of the things that fit us for the school board.
And I gotta say, as a member of the public, whenever you're addressing an organization in their public comment section, if all the group is gonna do is sit there stoically and stare back at you and not say anything, it's very frustrating. And in fact, it tends to piss people off. So at least some limited back and forth should be something that's allowed or considered. Even if you tell somebody, this isn't really the venue for that, here's how we handle this kind of thing. You
Well,
should-
I mean, come on, I don't think we're gonna have to sit there and, I mean, I think you're taking some of this a little bit literally. When we say thank you, we'll take that in consideration. That is not a talking back and forth. This is the issue. I think it's so nitpicky. This policy says
I think
what you're gonna talk about, what you're not
the
gonna
old
talk
policy, and
about.
I don't think it needs to be changed to something this restrictive. And that's my opinion. And in some cases, there were some items on here that you're dancing into some constitutional free speech and other area issues when you're starting to judge somebody's content of their speech as whether it's appropriate or not.
Okay, I am
So
going to, I'm gonna make a motion to table this. We'll leave the policy way it is. We can't, what do you think? Now I'm gonna talk to Ben. There is no perfect way, but I am literally, and this can be on the record, sick of going back and forth when we're not getting anywhere. This is the 5th time this has come into a meeting. And I would like your opinion on it, Ben, because right now we have other matters that we can discuss. If it works, it works. But the reason it was brought to our committee is because they didn't like the policy that we had before. And now the one we have is too restrictive. And I like the policy that we had before. But we weren't following the policy before. So I just overall just want to figure out what you think we should do. Because right now I'm just really, and I don't care if this is on video or not, I'm really kind of annoyed with having this go to a possibly 6th time to figure out how people can voice their opinion when we have committee meetings, when they have our emails, when they have our phone numbers, when they have the superintendent on Karen's number and can talk to the principals of the school and give any opinion of any of the stuff.
Yeah, it's hard because I mean, I was talking to someone about this today too with voluntary surveys. Voluntary surveys are, have their biases, right? And so, so like Allison was saying, we can get less voluntary, like we can get unbiased information by sending out or getting information a different way. But I mean, I guess it's always going to be biased because there's no mandated, survey response. You can't get a census, right? So I understand her point where, yeah, we're not going to make major policy changes or decisions based on some people participating. However, I understand what Danielle is saying, where, while that may not be the case, their opinions on that subject, could help you think, and then maybe you'll start asking different questions. So I get the point of that. And then I also get Rob's opinion where it's a lot easier to participate after something's been presented versus, before. So yeah, I mean, so I guess I don't have like a
But
solid opinion.
but here's the thing, when we had it at the end, people are like, I want to talk beforehand. So we
Right.
had it at the beginning so they could talk ahead of time. And we had it at the end so you could tell whatever you wanted to talk to. Then it was and then if they did, and there had been times, at least before you got on, if somebody wanted to talk, they did talk to Andy or they did talk to me, and we
Yeah.
said, hey, Andy, or somebody else wanted to talk about this issue, and we have brought it up.
And right, and there's a lot of different avenues to voice your opinion. So you can email us, you can call us, you can talk to us in person. So there, and you can go to the committee meeting.
And I think the problem is we have not communicated all these avenues for people to have. And that it's not the policy itself, it's our communication on what you can do to get this information.
Yeah.
That is the biggest problem, because if somebody knew, look, Rob will contact the mayor, Rob will contact me, and I'm not his alderperson. He will make sure that somebody knows he has something to do, and he has a bunch of avenues to do it. And I can guarantee you, he is always at least acknowledged. Rob, are you at least acknowledged? We might not agree with you, but you are at least acknowledged. And if you call me and you didn't get a hold of somebody else, I say, hey, Mayor, he has something to say. Or if you call Rachel.
Sure.
But that is the key. You have those avenues. And that is where some of this responsibility has to go to people, and taking, if you want to be a robust member of society, you have to do it. I thought Danielle was pissed at us and decided to leave.
Well, and it's also hard because, I mean, so it's a difference of opinions about what a school board meeting is. And so it's, I think Allison, you're saying it's like an open meeting versus.
It's a meeting in the public, not a public meeting.
Right.
It's a
But
meeting
we
in the
have to do
public
our
that
business
handles
in the
the
public.
business of
And
the
I
school board.
think other districts tend to do the public participation first.
Oh, yeah,
then-
the public comments first.
Yeah. And then they may not even have a non-agenda
Exactly.
item thing.
That's why I don't think it's restrictive, because many districts don't even have an opportunity to ask questions. It's public comments, the meeting, and it's done. So the
Yeah,
fact that we're at the end saying, all right, do you have any questions? I think is more open than a lot of places.
well, but it is restrictive in the sense that you can only talk about non-agenda items then.
So,
Right.
but no, because according to now I just said that you can talk about. You only
No,
can
I'm talking about at the end.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I just say we should go back to our policy. I don't want to, this is my suggestion now. Go back to our policy that we have now. And leave it as it is.
So I would push back a little bit and say that I think Andy and Molly should have an opportunity to at least weigh in on what they're thinking.
They will, but this is my recommendation from the policy that goes up to the school, to the board.
Okay.
This is the recommendation of this, or we haven't voted on it yet, and we don't have a second, or I'm just talking
So-
right now. but it would go back up to the full board. This is always a recommendation. This is never policy
So
coming
we
out of
could-
these committees.
We could make a recommendation that we bring a discussion item on public participation to the full board without a policy recommendation.
I would never do that because this is what this meeting is for.
Okay, so then we could, okay, so we could just move.
To your
Yeah, Danielle, sorry.
point, Andy and Molly are not here.
But
And-
they can have, I
So
don't
they
want to
can-
have this
they
whole
can-
thing all over again. We
They
can,
can provide you feedback.
right.
Not at a board meeting on what, I mean, I guess I'm just confused at. You
When-
brought the policy to the
so-
meeting and we tabled it. To
So
do that
with-
again seems redundant.
So with the way that you bring a policy one way or the other, a recommendation. So say if I decide, Ben and I decided that we were going to recommend that we do nothing. That recommendation goes. There is a motion for that recommendation. Then there's discussion. So the discussion would be Molly and Andy adding in and saying, because we are going to talk about, this is what we decided in our policy meeting. That's when Andy and Molly can say, wait, hold up, this is not what we wanted. I think we should do this or that. Then it goes for a vote in the full board. If they don't like it, and they don't like that we're going to keep our policy, then it votes down.
Okay.
Then if they like it and say, yeah, we're going to keep it the way it is, then it votes yes, and we're done. And then if they vote no, then it goes, you can say we vote to take, that's when a new motion would be to either send it back to committee or table it for 6 months or whatever to see what is going on. Yes, Rob.
As a side note, because you're talking about sticking with the original policy, I haven't been able to access the school board's policies on the website for a little while now. And I don't know if the link's bad or what's going on, but
That's Danielle's fault because she's in communication, so we're gonna blame it all on Danielle.
Oh,
So
Car-
in
they're in-
order
Allison
to
can
put
do
the
that.
current policies on the website, we'd have to reformat every single one. Since we are going to be reviewing and redoing a large portion of the policies, I told Karen that it didn't make sense to reformat the old ones since we're gonna be like working with a group to actually like go through our policies, figure out which ones are good, figure out which ones that we're missing, and do like a whole review of every single one. So they're available, some of them on the website, but not all of them because she paused, but they're all available if you request to
She
Karen.
can send you an index. I had to do this because she can send you an index so that you can see what they are and you can request a specific policy, but they're not available on the website or board docs right now. I don't think any of them.
they used to be. What happened?
We're
It's
transitioning.
transitioning
With the
from
new
our new
website.
website, and also they're transitioning to board docs. And that's just a heavy haul for one person. So they're in the process.
I think you should make that a priority.
So at
It
the
has been,
December,
if you would have gone to the committee, the communication committee, you would have known that they are prioritizing this. So
It did not
go to,
no, don't pull my committee down. It did
No,
not.
no,
go to
I'm
our
just
committee.
saying you
I just
guys
found
have
this
been
out
working-
too.
no, I was been saying that you guys have been working hard on this for a very long time.
Yes, this was a,
If you would have went to the committee meetings, you would have known what their timeline was and what you were doing. I love messing with Rob. It is like
Okay.
my second joy of being elected.
December board meeting, we're bringing forward a process we want to use to review all the policies, Rob. It's a heavy haul to do starting in July and starting a school year. So it's going to be spring and summer work.
Okay, so we do not have. That's not
So
under.
Tamika, are you telling me that your recommendation right now for the next board meeting, is just bring the old policy?
Ben, what do you think? What do you want?
I mean, I think it would make sense to bring the new one, and if they vote it down, they vote it down.
Ben, well, if we're gonna bring the old policy, or the new policy, I have one in the verbiage when it says, speakers will be limited to district residents, employees, and students and their guardians.
Mhm.
I think somewhere it should be Glendale shareholders, because there are business owners who want to speak and they pay taxes here, so
That
they
makes
have a
sense.
right to speak.
That makes
So
sense.
you're gonna bring the new policy with the recommendation to not, like, what is the policy committee going to be recommending?
I don't know. I didn't ask
When
Ben
you
yet.
bring
We
a
haven't made
policy, it comes with the weight of a recommendation.
I would like to bring it and recommend it.
You
And
would
have
like to
Molly and
recommend
Andy weigh in on it, and if you vote it down, you vote it down.
Ben, what do you think?
Let me think for a second.
Ben, you can vote it down in the regular meeting if you change your mind. I'm just
Well,
But
saying.
true,
it
I
has,
think
it
we
has,
should go
wait a
there.
minute, but it has to get out of committee first.
That's
True.
true. Well,
Right.
no, that is true. So if we just bring it, that doesn't mean we have to vote
Say
for
yes,
it. We can
right.
talk about it, then we can hear what Molly and Andy say, and then
But Ben, why as a committee would we bring a policy to the board that we don't like?
well, no, it's not saying that I don't like it. I just, having more information might be better.
What more information after 5 meetings could we need?
Molly and Andy's opinion.
That's fair.
I mean, yeah, so.
You make a motion, whatever motion you want to make it.
Well, hang on. I mean, what? So we're changing the fact that instead of the discussion happening within the agenda items, people still get to participate, but it's
a
just
lot of
beforehand.
changes in this policy, Ben, more than one. There are a lot of changes.
Well, but that's the main change, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's
It's at
time
the end of
limits.
the meeting
there's
instead of throughout the
decided-
agenda.
Yeah, there's a lot,
That's the main policy change.
Oh man, now you guys are putting this on me. Okay, so
I
mean-
moved to, I'm doing it. I'll do
I
it.
just,
yeah.
I moved to
Well,
make a motion to move the policy that was brought forth with the changes of the Glendale stakeholders to the full board.
yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, again, it's one of those things where.
If you don't second it, it dies in committee.
Right, so again, we can bring it to the board, and if we disagree, then we can, okay, so yes, I will second that.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. We are bringing this committee with that one change to the board.
well, can you change parents to caregivers at least? That's not me
Yes.
signing on, but.
Yes,
I
no,
thought
no,
I
I
did
understand.
already.
And if you have any other like
I have a
little,
lot that I'm gonna leave.
little words that are
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
more correct to use, I would
So,
suggest you give that.
Danielle,
Yeah,
so the language would change from non-residents of the district or non-parents of the school board may not speak to the red part that says speakers will be limited to district residents, employees, students, and their guardians. That was the change, but I will add and business owners.
No, I would say Glendale stakeholders
aren't
because
business owners taxpayers or citizens? Is that
Taxpayers.
not?
they're not,
business-
they're,
not
but we don't
necessarily.
have taxpayers here. We say district residents, employees, and students and their guardians.
Can you
And we
say it
don't
the
have-
way you said it again?
I said it should have stakeholders.
Okay, there was a,
It just says Glendale stakeholders or taxpayers, if you want to say taxpayers,
but
'cause
what was
that
the
is-
other word you used?
stakeholders,
Okay,
but
which,
that doesn't actually,
Should
because
we
some
just say
people have
taxpayer?
stakeholder and I would say, taxpayer, you know what, I'll tell you what the word is. It is in our common council book,
okay,
and it's a perfect word to use. I just can't think of it right now.
okay.
Is there, let's see, so I gotta look at my agenda, because I have an emergency common council meeting, but you guys
Sorry,
came
Tamika.
first this time. No, they came up with this new meeting, so. Okay, we're on 3,
Uh-huh.
Visitor participation. Visitors may speak on any non-agenda item at this time. State law and or board policy may limit the school board's response. Going once? Going twice? Oh, come on, Danielle, you're supposed to say something.
What? I've got a screaming child. What are you second?
Oh,
Trying to adjourn?
it was visitor participation part, so. we were-
Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Oh, actually, just side note, Rob's comment had me thinking, I used to ask Karin to send out an email about school board meetings, which I think now happens regularly, but I don't know if we do the same for committee meetings. Do you know, Allison? We do send a district-wide email saying there's a committee meeting coming up. And
I
link
put it
to
in the staff newsletter now. So I put upcoming dates and I put all the board meetings, all the committee meetings, everything in there.
What about and do you do that for the community, your school newsletter as well?
Mhm.
I guess to Rob's point, if we're gonna rely on folks to be more, the onus to participate in committee meetings for what, they need to know when they're going on and they need to have access to that agenda. So I would say the same way we email folks and say there's a school board meeting, we should be doing that for committee meetings. Maybe it's one with the schedule for the month, but then they wouldn't have access to the agenda, or it's however we get them. It's just something to think about. If that's our expectation, is that folks need to.
That is what we need to talk
information in
about,
various
and
ways.
that is what we need to talk about in our regular meeting, how we are setting this up, what our committee, we need to have a conversation about committees and making sure that we let people know.
Danielle, it's also on Facebook with the link.
Okay, that's great.
And
That's
this was the
awesome.
policy committee one. Yep.
That's
All right.
great. I think an email, maybe it's overkill, maybe it's not, but I think that.
So it's in the it'll be in the newsletter and then also,
Okay.
Facebook, and I can ask Karin if she emails it. I don't know if she does for committees.
And I just have a funny note that we realize our public policy will still be in effect when you guys bring this to the board. So there will be a chance for the public to comment during this
know.
agenda item.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
we'll see how
number
that
4, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah, so moved.
Well, I second that. All in favor? We don't need a second for adjournment, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. And I do love
Thank
this
you.
board and I love Danielle. I just love the fact that we can argue and then personally it doesn't go to
I
hell.
brought the
but-
baby as a buffer.
Oh, no, the baby's cute. All right, I have